start the recording now. It's now being recorded, so if you have any questions, I'll open the floor for those quickly now. Okay, let's get started then. There are just a couple things initially before we get started with our review of Abridged, Dewey, and Sears. This is intended to be a session where we just review what we've covered. If you have questions about the exam, there are 6 titles where you will assign Dewey numbers and Sears subject headings. There are 4 questions in addition to that, just asking about things we have covered, that we have discussed, that you have been exposed to, so there's nothing new. One of the 4 questions beyond the titles asks a couple of questions about your readings that you're required to do from the other textbook, the Library 2.0. I think it's chapters 6 and 8. You have that text, and you will be using that text again in at least 2 of your other courses. But this is open book, so you'll be able to use your Abridged 15. You'll be able to use all of your class notes that you have. Anything that we've done in class, you will have access to. This is the text that you have in addition to your Abridged Dewey. Okay. Do you have any questions now? As far as you're probably wondering what the questions are like, they're short answer, not intended to be lengthy, but just so that I can see that you really have mastered the content that you've been required to cover. The titles, someone needs to mute their mic, please. Jamie, I see you've joined us. Can you mute your mic? Okay. Brianna, please mute your mic. Brianna Caldwell. Okay, great. The questions as far as the titles are concerned are exactly like what you've been doing for your homework assignments. So there's nothing new there. You will be given 6 titles. You'll assign the Dewey numbers for those. You'll assign Sears subject headings, and you can do that in any fashion you want. You can do all of the titles and coming up with the Dewey numbers first and then find all of the Sears headings for those titles, or you can take a title and search to find your Dewey number first and your Sears number and then move on to the second title. As I said, it's open book, so you can approach this any way that you desire. Okay, I'm seeing some questions popping up. Will there be a time limit? No. That's a good question. Thanks, Sarah. There is no time limit. You will be given, it's in a Word document. It's not online assessment. It's a Word document where you will print that out or type into the file and submit your answers that way. So it's administered as a Word document, Linda, and you have a week to complete the exam, and it's due on November 19th. You have access to it on November 12th, next week. Sections from the other book, you don't have to have read those before you take the exam, Erin, but you will need to read those before you complete the exam and submit it. And as I said, I'm pretty certain that it's chapters 6 and 8 that you'll be reading. And I'll post a note about that to make sure you get those chapters so you know them right now. Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions, either in the questions area or unmute your mic and ask before we start taking a look at some titles?
Dr. Snipes, is this considered our final exam, or will there also be a final exam?
This is the only exam. This is it. This is considered your final exam. Okay, you have one more. I haven't scored all of the Dewey 3s yet, even though the answers are posted. You have one due tonight, Dewey 4, and then there's one more review session. And on the review session, we'll review titles. For that assignment, all of the titles are mixed in, so to speak. I don't give you directions as far as whether you're using Table 1 or Table 2, or is this following rules or citation order. They're just titles at random to give you some practice doing that. Tonight, that's what we'll do as well, because for the exam, there are 6 titles, just random titles, that apply various rules in various tables. So we'll practice with that a little bit tonight. Any other questions before we move ahead? It's not a test that's intended to be confusing or throw you off balance. It's exactly what we've been doing and exactly what we've been talking about all semester. And it is open book, open notes, open past assignments, anything that you can find other than calling each other to work on these titles for the exam. Any other questions?
Dr. Snipes, this is Lana Nix. I sent you my email earlier, and I didn't know if you're going to be doing some examples. If you could do one similar to number 3. I read your notes that you sent to me, and I'm kind of struggling where you came up with one of your numbers on there. So,
okay, you're talking about the geography title.
If you want me to hold off, and I can talk to you at the end of class.
You're talking about the geography. Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at a geography title, most definitely, and take a look at how that's developed. Absolutely. And if anybody else has a particular question about a title that, if we could do something similar to that, we'll certainly take a look at it tonight.
I was kind of struggling with the West Georgia title, with the college one. If we could do one like that one, it would be helpful.
Okay, that was the one about the library, right? I think, wasn't it, Danielle, wasn't that a title about the library, Ingram Library on campus at West Georgia?
Yes, ma'am, it was the Ingram Library at West Georgia.
Okay, we'll certainly take a look at something for that too. Anybody else have a question or a comment? Okay. The question somebody says about readings for the content, you are not required to do those readings until you take the exam. So there's nothing in those readings that impacts what we've covered thus far in our texts and in our course. When you get the Word document for the exam, you will see that there are a couple of chapters that you're required to read and give some responses to on the exam, but it's nothing that required any previous readings. Okay, let me take a look real quickly at this. Make sure I've got the chapters right for you. Yes, it's chapters 6 and 8 that you'll need to be taking a look at on that exam. Okay, first of 2, we can take a look at a first of 2 rule example. And biographies where they should be categorized, Connie asks, like Michael Jordan. That one is a tough one because biographies can be cataloged in many different ways. If you take a look at in the 900s, a lot of schools opt to categorize all of biographies just at the basic 920 number, period. And you're given a lot of direction about how to classify biographies. This is going to be a call that you'll need to make when you get into your own media center. You may want to put them in 920s. If you look at 921, 922, 923, this is another area that is an optional number. If you notice, there are asterisks, At the bottom optional number, it says prefer specific subjects as described under 920. So you can use all of this breakdown of numbers where you would place somebody like Michael Jordan. You would probably put him in arts and recreation at 927 if you were following this pattern. In a lot of schools, you'll see that everybody is put for individual biography in 921, all of the biographies. In other schools, you'll see they're all put under 920, just generally 920. There's a breakdown here that tells you where you can class biographies. Option A is to put the biography of the person with the subject. So you would put Michael Jordan probably in with the basketball number. Option B, class individual biography in 9-2, just plain old 9-2, or use a B to stand for biography. Or you can class biography of men in 920.71, of women 920.72. So there are several options. Biography's just always been a little vague and ambiguous. So what most people do when they get into a media center, they just follow the same pattern that the previous media specialist had been doing for biography. So that's something you'll need to consider if you want to go to the trouble and take the time of changing the system you inherit to either put everything in 920 or put everything in the general number that's recommended here, or enter shelving with the specific subject that identifies what that person's life was about. Those are all calls that you kind of have to make on your own because there's several options to choose from listed in Dewey. It's a good question. I think somebody may be covering that on the current issue question. Biography and how are story collection books shelved and how are fiction books shelved. And we had our own good example in class when Lana was asking about the graphic novels and what's a good way to deal with those. Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Dr. Snipes, I have a quick question.
Okay, Jamie, go ahead.
Is the exam for the 6 titles, will we be writing or explaining the numbers that we came up with like we do on the assignments?
I'm glad you asked that. Please include explanations. Now, if there's something that is just so obvious that there's really no explanation needed, then I would say this is pretty obvious. No explanation is needed here, or something. But the more you explain, the better it helps me to see where you're going. So, yes, you'll have this in a format, table format, just like the others you've had, where you can include an explanation. As a matter of fact, I'll show you what I had pulled up for us to work with today, if we have time today to get to all of these. This is what I would expect from you. Here's the title. Give me a Sears heading or two or whatever you think is best here. Explain it. Give me the Dewey classification number you're assigning to it and explain it. So these are just some practice titles that I came up with for tonight for us to practice with.
Dr. Snipes, when we're putting our Dewey numbers in there, you want us to extend them as far as we can, like we've been doing for the assignments? Because I know when I'm in elementary, so I, would stop after 1 decimal normally. But for our test or finals, you want us to extend them on out?
Thanks for asking, Danielle. Yes, I do. If there's a title there that has a geographic location associated with it, I would expect you to carry that on out to show that geographic location so I know you understand the concept. Now, in real life, in your media center, you need to do what works best for your patrons and your users, the students and the teachers, absolutely. But for the purposes of understanding Dewey classification, you're going to need to carry those out so that I can see you have that understanding. So thanks for asking that question. Anybody else? Okay. Throughout the session, as usual, if you have any questions, please ask. don't hesitate to jump in and ask. I'll try to pay attention over here to the questions area, but the best thing to do is unmute your mic and jump in and ask me a question if you've got one. Not a problem. Okay, let's begin with the examples that were requested. I'm going to make up a geography title. This is on the topic of geography, and let's say this is the geography of Florida. Okay, this is our title. If we look up Florida, we are going to find the Table 2 number. That's all we're going to find. We can't use Table 2 by itself, as you well know. It's to be used in conjunction with other numbers as we're building a number. So we have to go with geography. We search geography in the relative index, and we find geography at 910. So we flip to 910. Stay with me on this. 910. And we find it is geography and travel. Okay, we start reading the notes. Class here, travel by private passenger automobile, travel by motor homes, recreational vehicles, trailers, interdisciplinary works on tourism and travel, class general works on civilization, other than accounts of travel in 909, class dictionaries and gazetteers of place names in 910.3, class physical geography of specific continents, countries, localities in 913 to 919. This is a specific area. It's a state. It's a locality. It's Florida. So we're told to go to 913 to 919. So we're following our path to get to the right number. And here's 913 to 919. Geography of and travel in specific continents, countries, localities. Our notes. Class here, comprehensive works on ancient and modern geography of and travel in specific continents, countries, localities. Add to base number 91. Stop. We've got our base number. 91. Add to base number 91 notation from Table 2. We're given an example. And then if we had more information, we'd break it down and continue building, continue adding. But this is just geography of Florida. It's not a travel guide. It's not a telephone directory or anything like that. This is specifically a travel guide. A geography book on Florida. We've got our base number. We add from Table 2. You can go to Table 2 and look it up here, or we can look it up in the relative index. I'm going to go to Florida, and I find Florida T2 number 759. 759. I have to add my decimal after the third digit. My Dewey number is 917.59. Okay. Any questions? Give you a second if you've got a question on how this one was developed. Okay, let's move ahead. A second example. Somebody asked about the library question. Okay, let's take a look at, say it's the library, it's the academic library at FSU. Okay, Florida State University is what I'm intending here, in case you're wondering about FSU. So instead of spelling that out, I'll put FSU, which will make my husband very, very happy. Library at FSU, Academic Library. Okay, so let's go in and take a look and see if we can find anything on academic libraries. I see academic libraries is listed, 027.7. Let's go. 027.7, college and university libraries. As I read my notes, standard subdivisions, including comprehensive works, nothing yet about a geographic location, anything about specific institutions. Class here, comprehensive works on libraries for educational institutions. This is not a comprehensive work. Then we get on down into the notes down here. Specific continents, countries, localities. I'm told to class this in 027.73 to 027.79. Specific institutions. Add to base number, okay, stop, there's our magic phrase. Add to base number 027.7, stop, write it down. That's our base number. Add to base number 027.7, notation from Table 2. Then it gives me an example, the Perkins Library of Duke University. Well, this is Florida State University. So what I have to do is find my Table 2 number for Florida, which I now know. I just checked it out. I add it because I'm told to add to that base number directly from Table 2. So my number for the Library at Florida State University is 027.7759. Any questions on that one?
Dr. Snipes, I actually have a question kind of on that one and on the one before, where it says to put like the subdivision 00. Do you not have to put that, or well, I don't understand that part where it says like decimal 001 through 009. Can you kind of explain what that means?
Okay, Erin, are you talking about back at in the 900s where we were when we started with the 91?
Yes, ma'am. With that one and then with this one as well, do you have to put the and with some of the other ones I was looking at too, do you have to put the extra zeros behind the decimal or no?
Okay. Well, I'm not exactly sure I understand your question. Are you talking about these digits here at 913 to 919? There's the 001, 002, 0022. Is this what you're talking?
Where it tells you like to put for the standard subdivisions to put, I'll find it and ask you later. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's good. I just can't follow exactly where you're going. I would not do this. I don't know if this will answer your question, but I would not do a number like that. The extra zeros don't count. So I would just stop it here.
Like after the decimal, like 027.007 whatever 59.
Okay, you're talking about in this space right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you would put nothing in right there unless you're told to do so. The time you use the extra zeros, that's when we're using Table 1. If we're told on standard subdivisions to add extra zeros, that's indicating Table 1. Table 2 is specifically the number for the geographic location. And we don't add and presuppose any extra zeros. We strictly go by our base number. This is always going to be a base number plus Table 2. If there's the add note if there's not an add to base number note, there is no base number. And what we would do is we would use our regular number from the schedules here, our schedule number, 09 from table 1, and then our table 2 number. So there's two different ways of using table 2. This is how we use it, and this is how we use it. But table 1, we add extra zeros if there's a note about standard subdivisions that directly relates to table 1. Table 2, we don't add any extra zeros. We may have to add this from table 1. But that's the only thing we would add in between our schedule number and our table 2 number if there's no add to base number note. Does that make any sense?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Thank you. I was getting it all confused.
Very easy to do. Very easy to do. That's why I try to teach table 1 separate from the night I teach table 2. Because table 1, you're looking in here for notes about add to base for standard subdivisions. There's not a base number. There's just a standard subdivision note. For instance, if I find here, this is standard subdivisions. That means table 1. And it's showing me not just 01 to 09, but 001 to 009. So I would add the extra 0. But for table 2, we're told to add to a base number straight from table 2, or either we interpose the 09 and add table 2. If there is no add to base number note, we must have the 09. Okay. Good question. Good question. Anybody else have a question before we go to our next example? Okay. Very good. Someone was asking about a first of two, the first of two rule. Now let's remember the difference in the first of two is first of two rule is where you go with the number you come to first in the schedules. Okay, that's first of two. Rule of three is different. Rule of three, that's where you've got 3 items and you go with the number that includes or encompasses all 3 numbers, such as 623.458, 623.453, 623.457. The number that's common to all of these is 623.45. That would be our number. Now the caveat up here with the first of two rule is you have to check in the schedules to see if there is a table of preference. If there's a table of preference that shows the second one comes first, then you have to go with that one. Okay, so that's the rules kind of in a nutshell. So let's take an example. Let's say this is a book about sheep and horses. Pretty simplistic. If we look in the relative index, we're going to find that sheep is at 636.3. Here's my 636 at the top, 636.3. And we see, if we look in the relative index, we're going to find it directs us to horses at 636.1. Now, we look at those. They're, as far as this is all we know. It's about sheep and horses. And we need to know if we're going to go with the first of two rule, which would put horses first, or if there's another note up here that has a table of preference that might show me sheep should come first. So I'll look back up the schedules. I go all the way back up. I'm at 636. There is no table of preference telling me that I need to go by a preference order. So I go by citation order, what comes first in the citations. And it's 636.1. That's the one I come to in citation order first. There is no table of preference. Back up the schedules. So my number is 636.1. Now, let's say this is a study of sheep and horses. This is a study. This is education. This is a format. This is a standard subdivision topic. And you should have looked at your Table 1 enough to know that study of or workbook on or research of something is in a format that requires use of Table 1. So if I look back at T1, I see that in my summary, education, research, related topics is at 07. Okay, I'll look at 07 here at Table 1, see if there are any notes there. There are some notes about 07, so I can read these. Education is 07-1, which includes specific levels of education, curricula. For this one, all I know is it's study of sheep and horses. So I'm going to use my 07 from Table 1. So let's look at 636.1 and see if there are any notes about Table 1. And sure enough, standard subdivisions, Table 1, notation from Table 1 as modified under 636.001 through 636.009. That's telling me that in order to use the 07 from Table 1, I'm going to have to add 007. That extra 0 comes in because of my note right here on standard subdivisions. Some numbers have them, some don't. This one happens to have the note on Table 1 about standard subdivisions. Okay, any questions on that one?
Dr. Snipes, will you hold that answer back up again? Gracias.
Okay, any questions on that? Jamie, anything else? Is that clear? Okay, we'll move ahead now. I'm trying to unmute some people here who have joined. Nancy, I can't get your mic to unmute, so you may need to just type questions in. Deborah Roberts, can you mute your mic? I've unmuted you. And Krista Cliver, if you can mute yours, that's great. Okay, let me check the questions real quickly. Okay, go over where we've talked about that. If we've already submitted and realized we made a mistake, can we go in and change it and resubmit? Sarah, absolutely. If you've already submitted your assignment that's due tonight, just resubmit a second one. I won't even look at the first one. Just submit your second one, and we'll go with that for sure. Okay, any other questions before we look at a few more titles? Okay, before we go any further, let's continue looking at this one, and let's take a look at Sears. We haven't, that you're going to be doing that again, as well as assigning Dewey numbers. So let's look at Sears, and for this one, I would think we would want to have sheep as a heading. Search that, and we do have sheep. That's an acceptable heading. If I click on that, I can look and see if there are any particular notes that might impact my assignment. This is study of sheep and horses. So there's no geographic location I can add, even though Sears shows me that this may be subdivided geographically. It's giving me a sample Dewey classification number, and you'll notice this is closer than the one that's, well, this is the number for the anatomy of a sheep, and this one is the number that deals with basic sheep and horses as your pets, as animals, animal husbandry on the farm. It's not the physiology. Now, if you interpreted this title to be physiology, study of sheep and horses, and you think that has more to do with the physical sheep and the physical horse, I would accept that. 599.649. You would need to tell me. I think this deals with the physical sheep and horse, and not animal husbandry on the farm, sheep and horse. Okay, let's go in now and look for horses. And we see we have several hits here for horses. This is the study of horses. So we can take a look at horses here. 636.1 is the number that we used. It could be 599.665. Now let's take a look at that. 599.665 for horses. And when we had sheep, our number, if we were looking at the physiology, is 599.649. So if we went with this number instead of the 600s number, the sheep number comes first. So we would go with 599.649, which is the sheep number. But up here, this one is the horse number. So I'm looking to see that you know the rule. The rule here would be first of two. So, because there's no citation order note. If we look at 599.649, we see sheep, and there's no note here about Table 1, standard subdivision. So our number would be 599.64907. No extra zero required, because no note there on standard subdivisions about the number of zeros that we include. Okay, now let's look back over at Sears for just a second. If we wanted to, we could go broad and include animals, farm animals specifically. If you do that, that is fine, but give me a note explaining why you might want to use farm animals. Let's see if there's anything. There's farms, farm life, farm buildings, family farms. If we assume that this is a study of farm animals, ordinarily you would not do that because you don't know that. All you know is that this is a title on the study of sheep and horses, period. Our clues are, this is about sheep, this is about horses, and this is Table 1, education, research, study of something. Okay, any other questions right now? Okay, let's take a look at a couple of others. This one we won't do because we've done enough on dogs. This is just a straight how to care for your dog, period. Sears headings, let's see if there's anything interesting here about our Sears headings for care of a dog. Let's say dogs, service dogs, search dogs, dogs dash care. Take a look at that. Use for dog care. That's pretty straightforward. So that would be the best heading, Sears heading, to assign to this one. Now, explanation, pretty clear. Good enough. Okay, now jump in and stop me if you have a question. I'm not always looking at the questions over on my other screen, so I'll catch those if I miss them right now. We'll keep going. Coaching tips for weightlifting, track and field, and gymnastics. How many topics are covered here? Weightlifting, track and field, and gymnastics. More than likely, we're looking at something that has to do with 3 things. So we would probably need to start by taking a look at these 3 topics. Now, this could be categorized under just coaching tips. If you decided to go that route and look in the index under coaching, then you would tell me this is the path I followed. I started out by looking up coaching in the relative index, and this is where it took me. But let's take a look now at, let's go to coaching and see what it says. Coaching, sports, coaching, driving, coaches, railroad cars. If we look at coaching, sports, it takes us to 796.07. If we go to 796.07, education, research, related topics, including coaching. So we could use that, but if we want to be specific, to get to our most specific Dewey classification number, we would look at all 3 of these areas. We would look at weightlifting, track and field, and gymnastics. 796.4 is weightlifting, track and field, gymnastics. So that is pretty specifically what our coaching is covering. So it's 796.4. And if we look down through the notes, we see education, research, related topics, including coaching. So the coaching for weightlifting, track and field, gymnastics is 796.407. And that, again, is for this title. So our Dewey classification, 796.407. My explanation, I checked specific sports and found all 3 of these at one number, 796.4. I looked further and found coaching at 796.407. There's my explanation. Now for your Sears headings on this one, you could use all three of these activities. You could use the weightlifting as one, and we can go in and take a look at that if you guys want to. But we also know that Sears tells us we can use specific names of sports, whether they're in there or not. But these do happen to be in there. Weightlifting is one. Track and field is one. Or I think, actually, let's go look at track and field. This one might be a good one to see. If we look at track and field, we see track athletics, used for field athletics, track and field. So we're told to use this for track and field. We take a look at it. We may so divide geographically. Gives us a sample Dewey classification number. And feel free to use this as you're assigning Dewey numbers as well. Don't stop with that number, but it's a good additional source to use beyond your textbook. Athletics and sports are broader terms, but I need to use for my assignment track athletics. And gymnastics. Okay, let's make sure that one's there. But if it's not, we know that we can actually use it if we need to, because we can use specific names of sporting events unless we're told to use something different, as we just were previously. Okay, so those are terms that we can use, but what about the coaching? Is there any way we can show coaching in addition to these particular headings? Let's look and see. Here's coaching, athletics. Let's take a look at football coaching, horsemanship. Let's try coaching athletics. It says use for athletic coaching, use for coaching, use for sports coaching. See also types of sports with the subdivision coaching to be added as needed. I can use coaching as a subdivision. So I can go back and I can do coaching, coaching, coaching. Now, what if I want to use coaching as a subject heading? As we just saw, I can use coaching athletics if I choose. Because that's the heading that I'm shown here, athletics. Okay, then I would explain I can use all three of these as acceptable headings, and I can add coaching as a subdivision because Sears said I could. Okay. So we've walked through a couple of these here. Any questions? Okay, let's skip on down and do a couple of these here, and we'll back up and get the others. We've been on almost an hour, but let's take a look here. Treatment of alcohol abuse in the United States. Okay, now there's a clue here. There's a geographic location. Let's see how we deal with this one. Treatment of alcohol abuse in the United States. Okay, let's go back to Sears. Go back to the relative index. Let's try treatment of alcoholism. See if it's there. Treatment of alcohol abuse. Okay, treatment would be right here. It's not here. Treatment is not here, so we're going to have to go with alcohol abuse. All right, let's go back to the A's. And we find in the relative index alcohol abuse, personal health, substance abuse. Well, this is treatment of alcohol abuse. That's going to be in our social sciences number, probably, not our 600 for applied sciences. This is alcohol abuse, 362.292. Let's go to the schedules. $362.292. Alcohol abuse. Okay, this is treatment of alcohol abuse, and that's what this is, treatment of alcohol abuse. If we take our number, and we know this is in the United States of America, we'll have 362.292. That's our alcohol abuse number for the treatment of. And this is in the United States of America. So let's see if we can use Table 2. We look down through our notes, including remedial measures, services, forms of assistance. Class here, interdisciplinary works on alcoholism. Class control of sale of alcoholic beverages in 363.4. For a specific aspect of alcoholism, see the aspect. Okay, this doesn't tell me anything about geographic locations from Table 2. There is no add to base number. I can still use Table 2, as you recall, with the interposition of 09 from Table 1. So, treatment of alcohol abuse, this number right here in the schedules, in the United States, add 09 from Table 1, and then our number for the United States of America, which is 73. It's our Table 2 number. So our new number is 362.2920973. And Danielle, I know you would never use that in your elementary school. Nobody would probably do that. But I need to see that you know how to interpose 09 to show geographic location when using Dewey. Okay. And I knew that U.S. was 73. If I look up United States in the relative index, I'm going to find the Table 2 number. United States T2 is 73. That's how I knew to pull in the 73. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, we would put it in our Dewey classification number, 362.2920973. And the explanation again would be use the schedule number for treatment of alcohol abuse. Add 09 from Table 1 because no note is there to add to base number. Then add Table 2 number to equal 362.2920973. Any questions on that one? Okay, as we look at Sears, that gets a little more complicated. Sorry. We have several options for this one as we're taking a look at treatment for alcohol abuse in the U.S. We could try alcohol abuse. And we don't get any hits on this one. We could try alcoholism. And we do get a hit on alcoholism. Let's take a look at that. It says alcoholism, and we may subdivide geographically. There are some other options, some other related terms here. We don't use any of these that are used for, remember, those we can't use. We can see also classes of persons with a subdivision alcohol use. We can't really do that because this is just alcohol abuse in general, and we don't have a class of persons with it. And there are other related terms. But on this one, we know that we could use alcoholism and subdivide geographically. So we would use alcoholism. Yes. And then on the explanation, use alcoholism for alcohol abuse. Can subdivide geographically. Okay, any questions? You guys are being mighty silent. I hope this is making sense to you and not being confusing. Let's take one last one, the recipes for Mexico, and then we'll discuss if you guys need any more examples. Okay, recipes from Mexico. Back we go to the relative index. And we'll start with recipes. We've done some of these before. Recipes, cooking, 641.5. Let's go to 641.5. And we find cooking. This is specifically, though, cooking in a particular area. This is recipes from Mexico. So let's take a look at our notes, and as we read down our notes, as you recall from previous classes, hopefully, we get down to the notes at 641.59, where we have specific geographic environments, ethnic cooking, cooking characteristic of specific continents, countries, and localities. Add to base number, stop, there's our magic phrase. 641.59 is our base number from the schedules, as it tells us right here. Add to base number 641.59 from Table 2. It even gives us the example of Mexican cooking. So my number from Table 2 obviously is 72. So we build that number on cooking, Mexican cooking, in that fashion. Because we have the note, add to base number. We can pull straight from Table 2. If that note was not here, we would have to interpose 09 right there. But the note is here, so we can add directly. So on our sheet, let's put our number, which is 641.5972. And on the explanation, you would explain you were given the base number, 641.59, and add directly to that from Table 2 to get your 72. Now let's look at the recipes real quickly in Sears. I'm sorry, I hope y'all are going to GAETC this week. It's an awesome conference. We'll try recipes. And we're told here to use cooking instead of recipes. If we click on cooking, we're given a sample Dewey classification number. Of course, we went farther out than that to include our area. We may subdivide geographically if we want to use cooking. We could use cooking-Mexico, except we're given a note here. Use a phrase heading such as French cooking, Southern cooking, for distinctive national or regional styles of cooking. For cooking as it is practiced in a particular city, state, province, subdivide cooking geographically. Well, this is your call to make, but I would consider Mexican cooking a distinctive regional style of cooking, a distinctive national style of cooking. Now, if you told me you didn't view it that way, you felt like it should be Mexico-cooking because it wasn't distinctive enough as a national style of cooking, then I would accept that. I would probably on this one use Mexican cooking. And notice the C is not capitalized. Okay. That's a quick coverage. Yay, Julie's going all 3 days. Wonderful. To Georgia ETC. It's a good conference for technology. Okay, any questions? I'm going to pause and let you ask if you have questions.
Dr. Snipes, can you just briefly scroll back up and just let me see the other answers? I've been trying to write them down so I can just practice on my own as well.
Absolutely, Yolanda. I'll be glad to do that. I'll back up and I'll even post this if you would like, if that would be helpful for you guys. Okay, on this one, I think we actually used the 636 point, oh, we didn't actually do this one, did we? I think it's 636.7 for dogs. You come on down to number 2 and let you jot that one down if you'd like. Also, as I said, I'll post this if you think that would be beneficial for you. And at this point, we skipped on down to cover one where we would include the 09 because there was no add to base number note. And then an example of one where we had the add to base number note where we didn't have to interpose 09. Our base number is, oops, sorry. Oh well, you get the idea. 641.59. And then add from table 2 the 72. Okay, and I will post this. I'll add some of the other answers in with a little bit of discussion so it might be clearer for you. Okay. That's enough to cover for tonight, I think, unless you would like me to do some more with you. History of military defense. You're confused about the standard subdivision. Okay, that's a good question. Anytime we've got, let me get back over to this screen. Anytime you've got a title that's history of something, the clue here is history. We wouldn't use the number for history, which in the relative index is 900, because that's way too broad. You want to focus in on the main topic, which would be this topic. The history of indicates table 1, because that's the format. This is being acted upon by the history. History is acting upon whatever the topic is. So we use this as our number, whatever this topic is, and then we indicate the history by using table 1. So let's suppose we have a title that's history of, I don't know, geometry. This is the history of geometry. We're going to begin by looking at our subject, not the treatment and how it's treated, but the subject. Our subject is geometry. So let's go back to the relative index, look up geometry. Geometry is at 516. Famous problems, primary education, we don't know. We're just told history of geometry. Geometry is all we know. So let's go to 516. Here's geometry, 516. Let's read our notes. We know that this is in the format for history, and standard subdivisions indicate there's an entry for history. History happens to be 09. So let's look at our notes. Geometry, including classical geometry, geometry combined with topology, class algebra combined with geometry, so forth and so on. And then when we get down to the bottom section for our notes, standard subdivisions right here. So what we're going to do is, we know that history, as we look at table 1, is 09, history, geographic treatment, biography. Our number for geometry is 516, and we would add the extra 0 based on our note right here. 009. Insert the decimal point after the third digit. History of geometry is 516.009. Okay. I'm reading a question right here from Lana. Okay. Four through 9. Okay, Lana, can you type in the actual title on that exercise? Because I really can't follow exactly what you're asking here. Lana's asking a question about a title that's coming up about a river. I just don't have those exercises in front of me, so I'm not sure what the title. Okay, map of the area around the Cumberland River. Okay, a map of an area around a particular place. Let's say, this is map of area around Chattahoochee. And I have no idea how to spell Chattahoochee. I know how to shoot it, but I don't know how to spell it. Okay, all right. We have something about a map of an area around a particular river. Okay, we'll add river. So if we look up the Chattahoochee River or the geographical area where the Chattahoochee River is, are we going to find a number that will work for this, for a map? No, we're not, because this is all a T2 number. That's the location. If we look it up in the relative index, that's what we'll find. But this is a map of that area. This is a physical map of this area. So let's take a look here in the relative index at maps. And if we look up maps, it's going to take us to 912. We go to 912. And indeed, this is maps. Geographic representations of the surface of the Earth and extraterrestrial worlds. And as we look down through this, we read all of our notes, and we get down to this area where it says specific continents, countries, localities. Okay, I don't have a number for the Chattahoochee River. I don't think there's an actual number back here, but we know where it is. But we'll look it up. I've been surprised at some things I found in here. As I said, I do not know how to spell it. Okay, it is not here. Yes, it is. Chattahoochee River. There it is, actually. Wow. 758 is the number. That's our T2 number. So if we have a map of the area around the Chattahoochee River, if we want to be very, very specific, let's look. Add to base number 912. We stop. Write that down. 912 from table 2, and it gives you an example, maps of Illinois. Well, a map of the Chattahoochee River, our base number, 912, plus our Table 2 number of 758 equals 912758. Go back and insert the decimal point, and that is a map of the Chattahoochee River. Now the area around it, if you actually said, well, Dr. Snipes, it's the area around it, it's not the river itself, so it's Georgia. Fine, not a problem. 912.758 is actually the number for Georgia. If we look in the relative index. So that's how that number would be developed. I'm checking to make sure. I guess Chattahoochee River is just listed as the Georgia number. Okay. Does that...
Hey,
Dr.
Snipes.
Go ahead.
On that one, when you go and if you look at that number 758 for the Chattahoochee River, it gives you a star and then it tells you to go and look at for a specific part of this jurisdiction, region, or feature, see the part and follow instructions under the -4-9. And that's the part that I'm getting confused on where it's telling you what number to use. So if it clearly states Chattahoochee River and gives that number for that, do we use that number then? Does that make any sense?
Okay, I think it does make sense. I'm not sure where you're seeing that. Are you seeing it in the relative index, Lana?
You're right there. You're on that page.
Okay, right here.
Yeah, you're on that page, and see where it says class here, Chattahoochee
Yes.
River, and down at the bottom.
Yes, I know
and
exactly.
It tells you to go,
yes.
It tells you to go to -4, -9, or -4-9.
Okay, that stands for the 4 through 9 is actually back over here. Four through 9. That's what it's referring to. It's pushing you back to this location right here, and giving you the reason for why it's included over here is what it's doing. And it's also telling you if it's one of these particular specific areas, then you would use the further number that they give you here. But in addition to that, Lana, the confusion comes in because this is referencing the larger Dewey. That's all the volumes that we do not have access to.
Okay.
There are actually 2 geographic tables in the full Dewey, not just one like we have here. This is a condensed table, and that's what that notation is indicating. If there's a particular region or feature, you would flip back here and see if it's listed here and use that. And it's not here in our books. In the abridged Dewey, it's just not there.
Okay.
You may be able to get a lot more specific for a title like this if you use the full Dewey. There may be another 2 or 3 or even more digits that follow that specify, narrow it down to the actual Chattahoochee.
Okay. That makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I have the correct number.
The furthest you can go with this, I understand. Very good question.
Thank you.
You're following those notes real closely. Very good. Okay. It's about 7:18 right now, and we can keep going over more titles if you want to, or if you feel pretty confident, we can call it a night and continue discussing some of the titles and questions on the discussion board. Any other comments or questions for tonight? Okay, a question Danielle is asking, the Cork County, is that referring to Ireland? I was referring to Cork County in Ireland. If you didn't see it that way and you felt it was another location, just explain. I thought it was Cork County, Indiana, because my great-grandma lived there for 2 years. And that's fine. As long as the number is formed correctly, that's what I'm looking for. Good notes helps. Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll probably end for the evening. I wanted to mention I'm a little bit later in looking at those grades for the Dewey 3 because I presented at a conference in Monterey last week and I was out of pocket all week long. So I'm trying to catch up frantically, and I will get scores assigned for those just as soon as possible, and still available to talk with you if you have questions at the discussion board about specific titles. So thanks for attending, and this is being recorded. Hopefully it'll be up by in the morning tonight if it spools quickly enough before I leave my office, but if not, I'll get it up for you first thing in the morning. Thanks, and everybody have a great evening.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Snipes.
Yes.
Dr. Snipes.
Yes, question?
I was just wondering, are you going to the conference this week?
Yes, I am. Is this Julie?
It is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I see your name now. Yes, I'll be going. We're presenting Thursday afternoon, and we're presenting Friday morning, and we're going to have a booth over in the exhibit hall, so definitely come by and visit our booth.
Okay. What are you presenting?
Thursday, we're presenting something on copyright and Creative Commons and fair use.
Okay.
And then on Friday, Dr. Cooper is the main presenter for something about apps and video type things.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I've got some of my sessions I want to go to, and